IRCC website as soon as possible so we may update your file. The next question is, I received approval of my study permit but deferred my studies. How do I extend my visa? In this case, you will need to apply for a new study permit with updated information. Extensions of study permits are only granted to students already in Canada. The next question regarding deferrals is, may I defer my studies after I receive an approval in principle or stage 1 approval? The answer to this is yes. However, you must submit your new letter of acceptance from your DLI as soon as possible. If you change your course of study or decide to study at a different DLI, the officer may want to reassess your stage 1 decision. The next set of questions are related to the postgraduate work permit. The first question is, when determining if 50% or more of a program has been completed in Canada for Pgwp eligibility, how is the time calculated? The answer to this is 50% of a total program of study is calculated based on the number of courses completed in Canada. In a situation where part of a semester is completed in Canada and the other part online overseas, IRCC will consider that the semester was completed in Canada. Applicants may have to submit additional documents from the DLI. The next question is, I have already completed 50% of my program online prior to the fall semester. Will I be eligible to receive a Pgwp? There are numerous situations with regard to the answer for this kind of a query. You may complete 100% of your program online if your program is between 8 and 12 months in length, you started your studies between May and September 2020, and you finish your program by April 30th, 2021. You may complete up to 50% of your program online until April 30th, 2021 if you complete the other 50% of your program in Canada. And you may complete up to 50% of your studies online until April 30th, 2021 if you will graduate from 2 different eligible study programs within 2 years of each other. One of the programs started between May and September 2020. Each program is at least 8 months long, and you complete at least 50% of the combined length of the programs in Canada. The next question with regard to a Pgwp is, if I switch from full-time to part-time studies, will this affect the duration of my Pgwp? The answer to this is that students may put their studies on hold or become part-time students due to course cancellations as a result of public health measures at DLIs and COVID-19. For the winter, spring, and summer 2020 semesters, when a student's status changes from full-time to part-time due to changes in course delivery at a DLI, their eligibility for a post-graduation work permit will not be impacted. Starting in fall 2020, students who do not maintain a full-time status may not be eligible for the Pgwp. The last set of frequently asked questions I will be addressing are with regards to accompanying dependents of international students. So these could be your spouses and your children as well. So the question is, I submitted an application for my dependents along with my study permit application. Will they be processed at the same time? The answer to this is yes. Applications for spouse and children of prospective students will be processed at the same time. You must provide financial documentation to show how you will be able to support your dependents without working in Canada. The next question is, with the new travel amendments in place, what will be the status of the spousal applications which were in process and whose spouses are now eligible to travel to Canada? So the answer to this is IRCC is processing those applications and all applicants will receive decisions on their applications soon. However, because of service disruptions and limited staff, there is a backlog which IRCC is working through, so applicants are requested to kindly be patient. And the next question, which will be the last question with regards to this part of our webinar today is, will my dependents be eligible to travel to Canada with me if they have temporary resident visas and I have a study permit? With the amended travel restrictions, immediate family members may be able to accompany an international student to Canada if their reason for travel is non-optional or non-discretionary, such as getting established in Canada in support of the principal applicant's study program. This could include a spouse or a common law partner, a dependent, or in the case of a minor child who will be studying in Canada, a parent or legal guardian. Like all travelers to Canada, international students and accompanying family members will be subject to all public health measures, including the mandatory 14-day quarantine period upon arrival in Canada. To be exempt from the travel restrictions, temporary resident visa holders who are immediate family members of study permit holders require a letter of authorization from IRCC in order for an authorization to travel may be made by sending us an email. I will be sharing this email address in the Q&A box right after this part of the webinar, so you can copy it from there for your records. When you write to us with requesting for a letter of authorization, you need to include the following information in the email. Documentation showing that they are an immediate family member of a study permit holder, why they need to travel for an essential purpose, and their file number, name, and date of birth. And with this, I now come to the end of the frequently asked questions part of our webinar. As mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, we will now be taking up questions which we have received from you during the course of the webinar in our Q&A box. And these will be addressed by our student unit manager, Ms. Elena Balboa. I would request Shakir and Elena to please take this up now. Over to you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Anandita. Alina, I hope you can hear me clear.
Yes, go ahead, please.
All right. So the first question, Alina, is that I have applied my visa on the 25th of September for fall intake. Under which category will my visa fall? Is it the AIP category or the general category?
So the two-stage process, which includes the AIP, only applies to applications which were received before September 15. And so since you submitted your application after September 15, you will fall under the regular pre-pandemic style processing, and you will not receive an AIP letter for your application. So if everything is on file for the applications that do not qualify for the two-stage processing, this essentially means that number one, you will not get an AIP letter. You will not receive any sort of documentation to indicate whether or not your eligibility is approved, whether your admissibility is approved. If everything happens to be on file, the only correspondence you will receive from us is when we're ready to request your passport for visa issuance. So if there are other things missing from your file, certainly we will send you a request letter for those documents or information. Otherwise, just be patient. The only letter you might receive is just that passport request letter when we're ready to finalize your application. Thank you.
Thanks, Alina. So the next question is, when will IRCC begin issuing second stage approvals for students in India? Will the second stage approval begin only after WACs are completely open?
So right now, the only applications which we are approving for visa issuance are the applications where the DLI of destination is on the DLI approved list. Why? Because if you're destined to a DLI that is not going to permit you to travel to Canada at this time, we do not need to expend resources, limited resources at that, on applications where it wouldn't matter if you had a visa anyways, because you can't travel at this time. So we are prioritizing essentially cases where the applicant is able to travel, i.e., your DLI is on the DLI approved list. So in terms of a stage 2 approval, there is really no stage 2 approval. The stage 2 approval is either your visa will be issued or not. And so for those cases, really it all depends on whether or not the travel restrictions will either be amended or lifted. So, and it won't so much matter anymore whether or not the VACs will reopen, because we do have this two-way passport submission for cases where we are able to issue the visa. So as of right now, I'll say that in terms of those cases, please be patient. We will let you know when we're ready to request those passports for all of those cases. But really, the biggest indicator for you is whether or not you will be able to travel to Canada. And this is really monitoring the travel restrictions on our website, whether it's your DLI that's on the approved list, whether those travel restrictions are changed or amended so that it's more broad or potentially more restricted. Thank you.
Thanks, Alina. So the next question is that I have applied for study permit in August for the Jan 2021 intake. Please let me know when will the processing of my application start, as it is on the same status since then.
So for applications that are for 2021, I can tell you that my office in particular has already begun processing those cases. So it's not as if we're holding up cases for 2021 start dates. The priority really is to get all of the cases done for 2020 first. And I know that some offices with larger workloads are still trying to work through that workload. So we really ask all of our clients to be patient. Now, you may not have received any information or updates on your case because your case doesn't fall under this two-stage process, right? So you shouldn't be expecting any type of documentation from us, really, if your case is complete, other than potentially a passport request letter when it's ready for you to travel, when we're ready to issue that visa. So this could be a reason why you just haven't heard anything or any updates on your case. But that's not to say that there hasn't been any movement on your case, because there may have well been. Thank you.
Thanks, Alina. So the next question is that for students who've already received their AIPs and have a biometric instruction letter that has already expired, what can we do about that expired letter?
So all of the biometrics request letters have had their expiry dates extended only because the VACs remain closed. And frankly, it would be a waste of resources to have to reissue these letters. So once the VACs do reopen, they are very well aware that people will be coming to them with expired biometrics letters, and they will be accepting those. In cases where, for example, the biometrics letter may be expired for way too long, like we haven't really developed policy yet on what the time frame might be in terms of how long can these letters be expired. But certainly we will communicate to you if there are any such restrictions. And for those cases, frankly, we'll just reissue those letters. If you don't receive a letter, once the VACs reopen, the letter that you currently have is essentially extended. Thank you.
Thanks, Alina. So the next question is that I've been previously refused a US study visa. Can this lead to a refusal in the second stage processing?
So my number one advice to you is you should tell us about this refusal in your application, because a lot of applications get refused, and we make a misrepresentation determination against them, and they're barred from reapplying for 5 years because they've failed to disclose specific information on their application. So number one, make sure you tell us on your application that you have had these previous refusals. Now, in terms of whether or not this will actually impact your application, it depends on what the refusal grounds are. There are refusal grounds, to me, what I would like to call fixable refusal grounds. For example, you forgot to provide me your academic transcripts, so I am refusing your application. This is fixable because you can technically reapply and provide the correct documentation. Or you didn't provide enough evidence that you have the funds to go study. This is fixable because the next time you apply, you can provide more evidence. There are some things, to me, that are not so fixable. For example, the refusal for your US visa could be that you were determined to be a criminal and you have a criminal background. So your criminal background will clearly impact your Canadian study permit application as well. So there are certain things that are fixable and non-fixable. For the eligibility refusals, they've determined that you didn't have enough funds, that you didn't demonstrate you were a bona fide student. You just need to submit a better application, essentially. And if you're choosing to apply to Canada the next time instead of reapplying to the US, you just need to make sure that you have all of the necessary documentation on file and that you've disclosed this previous refusal to give you a better chance at a visa. Thank you.
Thanks, Alina. So the next question is that I'm choosing a course of study which has 3 semesters. So how much fee do I need to pay as per the SDS rule category? It further says that generally students are paying only 2 semester fee, and in the past they have been receiving their visa under the SDS category. So please advise how much fee should I be paying?
So for a 1-year program, depending on how long that program is what the fee you should be paying. Technically, we do deem 2 semesters to be a full academic year. So if you provide fees or tuition paid for 2 semesters, which is an academic year for us, you should be able to qualify for SDS. Thank you.
Thanks, Alina. The next question is, if I defer my intake in the same college or in the same course after receiving my AIP, will it affect my stage 1?
No. Thank you.
Thanks, Alina. The next question is, if a candidate has got an AIP but then deferred it for January 2021, how will their application will be processed further?
So the processing essentially remains the same. It's just that if you haven't received your AIP yet, you just won't get one for 2021 start dates, right? And frankly, I know a lot of you are applying and have a very clear plan of what you intend to do for yourself. So if you're applying for a visa for like a 2020 start date, but that is not your intention, please have some integrity and be honest in your application. Like, put the correct dates down of when you actually intend to go to Canada and study, because this is creating more work in the background, which causes delays in processing for everyone, including yourself, right? So let's be a little bit more efficient and a little bit more honest about what everyone is intending to do in terms of their immigration plan and study plan moving forward. So if you intend to only study in 2021, this is what I expect you to put in your application, and not to indicate a 2020 start date because you think you might receive some sort of priority. Thank you.
Thanks, Lena. So the next question is that, may I send my passport to Dubai VFS for passport stamping when I get the passport request letter, or do I need to be there in person?
So if you're going to go to another country to submit your passport or even potentially submit your biometrics, number 1, you need to do it physically in person. Number 2, we will not facilitate any such requests. You will have to wait like everyone else in that country, depending on what their wait times are. We will not expedite visa issuance just because you might be waiting in a third country to get your visa. So keep all of those things in mind if you do intend to access services at a VFS that is not in your country of origin. Thank you.
Thanks, Alina. The next question is, when will the approved DLI list be updated next?
So the DLI list is scheduled to be updated every 2 weeks. So it was just released on October 20. This is the first list. So expect the next update 2 weeks from October 20. Thank you.
Right. So the next question is that you mentioned that in order to be able to demonstrate that my travel to Canada is essential, I have to show a letter confirming the start date of my classes from my DLI. By this, do you mean the LOA where our initial start date was mentioned, or some new letter? I'm asking this because my DLI plans to have online classes even for winter 2021 semester. What should I do in this situation?
So as long as your DLI is on the list and your classes are in progress, whether in person or online, you are able to travel to Canada. Your DLI does not have to provide you any other additional documentation as long as you have that LOA, which indicates your start date of classes. Now, keep in mind that when you do meet CBSA at the port of entry, which will be at the airport, you need to demonstrate still that you are a bona fide temporary resident who is coming for the purpose of studying. So, what does that mean? Number 1, do you have a place to live? How are you intending to study? Is it online? Is it in class? Like, what is really the purpose of you being in Canada is what you have to prove that you're actually there to study. So you need to think about those things before traveling. Thank you.
Thanks, Alina. So the next question is, do we still need a travel support letter from institutions to be able to travel to Canada for study purposes?
As long as your DLI is on the approved list, you do not need such letter. Thank you.
And Lena, next question is that, do we need to include a police clearance certificate for SDS applications?
So police clearance certificates should not be provided unless the officer who is processing your case specifically requests it. Clearly, if you want to provide it upfront with your application, we are still happy to receive it, but it is not an obligation, nor is it mandatory for you to submit it upfront. Thank you.
Thanks. Elena, the next question is that with regards to Pgwp, can you please explain the meaning of graduating from two different programs within 2 years of each other?
Okay, so this is with where you're doing, I guess, 50% of the course potentially online and potentially in Canada, outside of Canada, before actually going to complete the rest of it. So to obtain the maximum 3-year Pgwp, you need to complete 2 years of eligible courses, right? And what some people do is to take one program that is 1 year in length and then add another program to it that is also another year in length to get the full 2 years. And both programs essentially qualify for a Pgwp. So, generally speaking, these programs should be done like back to back. But sometimes students may need potentially a break in between for whatever reason. For example, there could be a medical reason. There could be family issues that they need to leave Canada, etc. So we've provided the provision or the facilitation that in the event you need a break in between these two programs. That's why we've given you 2 years to graduate from each other. Where essentially you could potentially have like up to a year where, in case anything happens that prevents you from continuing your study, you still have a year later to complete that last program and graduate from that. I hope that's clear. Basically, your graduation date should be 2 years from each other. But essentially what most people do is just do the two programs back to back, where it just takes up 2 years of your life back to back to complete these two programs. Thank you.
Thanks, Alina. So the next question is that do I need to follow a particular format for writing a letter of motivation or letter of explanation, more commonly known in India as the statement of purpose?
So for the statement of purpose, all I can tell you is that you need to explain in detail really what is motivating you to study in Canada, why that particular program, why Canada, and what do you expect to do with this degree or diploma once you finish, right? This is basically you stating why we should believe that you're a bona fide student who will depart from Canada at the end of their authorized stay. So explain all of that in detail to me, and as well as any other information that may be abnormal or not so common in your application that may require that additional explanation. In terms of a format, there's really no format. Explain it well. Try to organize your thoughts in in a manner that sort of flows, because there is a visa officer that needs to read this and understand it. In addition, just be honest. Tell us how it is. Try not to. Please don't hide anything, because if we find out, then you may be barred from reapplying for 5 years. I guess that's the best advice I can give you. Just be honest in your statement of purpose. Thank you.
All right, Alina. So the next question is, what about those students whose university is not on the DLI list?
What about them? You can't travel to Canada right now, so I'm not sure what you're asking. You will have to wait for either your DLI to be on that list before we can finalize the approval of your application, or if the travel restrictions are lifted. So up until that time, where such that those things happen, there is nothing. Your application will have to wait. You will have to be patient. Thank you.
All right. So the next question is that can we send our passport to the Delhi High Commission from any other country after getting the final approval from the VFS of that country?
So number one, no passports should be ever sent to the High Commission, ever, ever, ever. Ever, ever, ever. Do not send us your passport. I really, really mean this, because we will return it to you. And the process of returning it to you may potentially be long, and you may be without a passport for a while. So it is to your benefit not to send us your passport directly. There is currently a two-way courier system that we have arranged with the VACs. It is a back office service, which means that the VACs still remain closed to the public. You cannot go to the VAC to access this. Okay, so you will receive instructions if we are ready to receive your passport, and then those instructions will tell you how to connect with the VAC to arrange for that two-way courier service, and that is how we will receive your passport. We will not accept your passport in any other way. Now, if you're coming from another country and wish to use this two-way courier service in India, yes, certainly this can be arranged, but this is only possible for people with addresses in India. So if you expect this two-way courier service to send you your passport back to wherever you may be, no, this is only for in India. Thank you.
Thanks, Alina. So the next question is that I got my AIP through the email and it did not get updated in my GC key. Is it necessary to write a web form to IRCC to get it updated on my GC key?
Okay, so you've received your AIP letter. Why on earth do you need for it to be updated in your online application? So you've received your AIP letter, period. That is the end of it. Please don't write to us because you want to see this in your GC key. You've received the letter. Please be satisfied that you've received the letter. Thank you.
Thanks, Alina. The next question is that if I'm currently studying online for the fall 2020 semester and my college is one on the approved DLI list, may I travel as soon as my application approval is finalized?
So sorry, just to be clear, Shakir, the DLI is on the list. So if it is, then yes, certainly you can travel as long as your classes have started. Just keep in mind, like for anybody who's intending to travel to Canada, if your DLI is on the list, it doesn't mean that you can travel anytime. It means that you can travel to take your classes at most 3 weeks before your classes begin. So if your classes haven't started yet and they don't intend to start for many more months, you should not be traveling to Canada right now. Only if your classes are ready to begin should you be traveling to Canada. Thank you.
Thanks, Alina. The next question is that what is non-discretion test for dependents? It was mentioned in the presentation, but I need more clarity on this.
So essentially, this means and that should be dependents and not non-dependents. Am I correct? So because non-dependents would not be allowed to travel with you. So dependents who intend to travel with you to Canada, their non-discretionary travel is essentially where you're moving the whole family to Canada to help you settle and to support you in your studies. So if the person was only going to come and, stay for, a few weeks, check out Canada, and then come back to India, this is not non-discretionary travel. They're basically tourists in Canada, and this we do not permit. But if you're intending to move the family altogether and to stay in Canada throughout your studies, which could be 1 year, could be 2 years, could be more, then this would be considered non-discretionary travel. Thank you.
Thanks, Reena. So the next question is somewhat related to the question you just answered. It says that can we study in our home country till April 2021, even if the visa is issued by December 2020 and our DLI is on the approved list?
Yes, absolutely. Just because you have a visa doesn't mean you need to travel immediately. And if your courses are being offered online, certainly you can remain in India and take those online classes. And frankly, I think that's a smart move because you can continue your studies online in the comfort of your home with the support of your family, your parents who you might be living with. And you don't have to worry about all of those other distractions that come with moving to another country and dealing with life's other chores other than academics. You can actually focus on academics. And you could also potentially be saving quite a lot of money in terms of not having to pay living expenses in another country. So certainly I'd encourage you, if your online classes for winter 2021, stay in India, complete them here. You're more than welcome to. And then once you're ready to travel to Canada because your in-person classes are beginning, certainly then use your visa to travel then. What I would recommend, however, is that when you are traveling, that you you bring with you documents to show that yes, your classes have started, that you've already begun taking classes, that now your in-person classes are starting, and this is the start date of those in-person classes, and that's why you're traveling to Canada now. That's what I would recommend for you when you are ready to travel. Thank you.
All right, so the next question is that the IRCC Global Twitter page recently said that studying online from outside Canada will not be considered towards CRS points for the permanent residency. Can you please comment on this?
So this is for permanent residency. Frankly, I haven't been following all of those policies because my specialization is study permits. You'll need to visit our website to see what the eligibility requirements are. Thank you.
Thanks, Alina. So the next question is, what if my medical test results expire before I travel to Canada or before I receive my stage 2 approval?
So there are some circumstances where we might extend the medical validity of some cases. And in which case you won't hear from us. We'll just extend that validity and then approve your case. For other cases where we do need you to redo your medicals, we will send you a medical request letter to redo your medicals. So please wait to hear from us and that to determine what your next course of action ought to be. Thank you.
Thanks, Alina. So maybe I think we could take one more question. It says that should we mention a dependent spouse as a visitor or as an open work permit as the dependent spouse does not intend to work in Canada?
So if your dependent spouse was intending to go live with you in Canada for 1 year or 2 years or more, I will refuse that visitor visa application because they are no longer a bona fide visitor. They intend to stay in Canada for longer than 6 months. So what does that mean for you? All accompanying spouses should apply for an open work permit because this will allow them to stay in Canada for the full length of your studies as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Alina. So I don't see any more questions which we haven't already answered. Is there anything more which you'd like to add?
Just thank you everyone for tuning in. I understand that all of these changes to travel restrictions is causing a lot of anxiety for everyone. But I want to assure you that the government of Canada is doing its best to try to support students, international students, in their education goals and help you achieve those by coming to Canada and studying. Please monitor us on our social media pages and visit our website to stay on top of what all of these travel restrictions are. And, in case changes do occur, the VFS website is also there available for you to monitor when the vax may open. Right now, we don't have a specific date of when this might open, but I can tell you that this is being monitored very regularly to look at when it might be safe to open the vax. In the meantime, please take care, stay safe, happy holiday season, and we hope to see you at our next outreach event. Thank you.
Thanks, Lena. Before we end, I think it may be pertinent to just answer one more question, which we're getting from a lot of people. It says that how will they get to know that IRCC has received their documents because they did not receive any confirmation of receipt?
So I assume you either used the web form or emailed us your documents, right? So number one, if you're sending us documents, please use the web form to email us. And you will receive a sort of AOR, like an acknowledgement of receipt, that we've received an email from you. That's enough. Please do not request for confirmation that we've received your documents specifically. If you've sent it to us, you've emailed it to us, and you've received that acknowledgement of receipt back, like it's sort of an automated message, assume that our email boxes have received your documents, okay? And that should be sufficient for you. Just note that we are working with limited staffing resources right now, and to sort of have this very specific, all these little services available to you, like to try to I don't want to use the word appease. To tell you all of these little things that are happening with your application, like whether we've received an email from you or not, like we do not have the resources right now to do that. So please don't ask us for those, for confirmation of these things. If you've sent it to us, you've received your acknowledgement of receipt, the automated acknowledgement of receipt. Assume we've received it and just sit back